We are also the #1 luxury brand in the world. Have you heard the name of these brands? Lancome, Kiehl's, YSL. Huh? So these come under the third division, which is the luxury division. Okay, it's called active cosmetic division. So when you go to a doctor, they write a prescription for your skincare or your skin problems. So that's called active cosmetic division. The L'Oreal has 4 division, consumer division, 3 big brands, professional division, focusing on salon, and active cosmetic division and a luxury division. So it has total 32 brands world over, and it only plays in beauty. This event, now I'm linking it back to this event. So we do beauty, right? Okay, we do beauty across. In India, we started in 1991, but we are a decent size organization. We are still the challengers in India, and our one big goal is to develop the #1 beauty advisor to India. How can we advise on beauty? Now, our founder was a chemist, right? So that's how it's a 100-year-old company. L'Oreal, more than 100-year-old company. That's how we started the company, by mixing the formula. Developing the world-class, performance-based beauty products. We just don't want to say, this is what it does. Our ethos is it does what it says. So that's the kind of focus we have on the product.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. Good afternoon everyone. Welcome ladies and gentlemen. Very, very special guests, so we are very excited to have here today. To my amazing Maybelline team, everyone from L'Oreal who has joined us today, welcome. So before we kick off this event and kick off the panel discussion that we are all really looking forward to, I'd just like to spend a few minutes to introduce to you Maybelline, what we do, and important facts that we want to share with you. 1 in 6 Indians experiences anxiety and depression. And this is a number and a stat that we have pre-COVID. So we know that post-COVID, this number is going to be much higher. In India, almost 43% of our an ideal number of psychiatrists to population is 3 psychiatrists per 100,000 people. In India, this number is 0.75 psychiatrists per 100,000 people. And something that's very close to 18 to 24-year-olds, 14% in India have reported feeling anxious or depressed. So here are some of the facts, right? Despite why? Because I don't feel comfortable to ask. I don't want to talk about it. I can't find the right person to talk about it to. Or it's so expensive to get help. I don't know where to find the person. I can't afford to find the person and pay for help and support. So at Maybelline, we have a very special purpose that's close to our hearts, and that's called Maybelline's Brave Together. It is really our mission. It's to normalize having these conversations. When you feel sick, when you have a fever, mental health is not where we think it should be. We think 100 times, who do I call? Can I tell someone about this? What will someone think right? So it is as important as our physical health. So that's our mission, Maybelline New York's Brave Together, where we encourage everybody to raise your hand. Raise your hand and say, hey, I'm not feeling okay, I need help.
About their own struggles with mental health, so it'll be great to hear from them. What are the kind of issues they've faced and how do they cope with that, and hopefully that will, part of the reason why we want to speak about mental health, of course, is the fact that the data which was presented earlier spoke to the fact that 1 in 6 Indians probably have some form of mental health issue. This data is data which also is not just specific to the pandemic. We've just gone through the acute phases of the pandemic is still on, but data also indicates that almost 1 in 8 people globally, as per the World Health Organization, were living with some kind of a mental health disorder. And part of the challenge is the huge treatment gap which exists. When we have a mental health disorder, are not able to get care in an accessible manner and in time. And of course, that is a huge impediment for them to be able to get better. And during the pandemic, this of course got accentuated, and many of you would have heard stories, many of you would have yourselves struggled perhaps with mental health and well-being issues, or had friends and family who were struggling, which is reinforced by the National Mental Health Survey, which the Government of India did in 2016, which talks about the fact that anxiety, depression, and substance use disorders account for nearly 90% of mental illness cases. And of course, this also points to the fact that there is a lot which we need to do. So please join me in welcoming our panel on the stage. I'm going to do short introductions for them, but while I'm doing that, if I can request all of you to start coming on the stage, please. So on the panel today is Shaheen. Shaheen Bhatt is a screenwriter and author of the best-selling book I've Never Been Unhappier. Shaheen is also the founder. Shaheen has also collaborated with Books on Toast to create the Shiny Happy Book Club, a book club that aims at combining reading with mental health and using reading as a therapeutic tool. Welcome, Shaheen. Also on stage is Arjun. Hi, Arjun. Arjun is a counseling psychologist from Hisar in Haryana. He completed his master's in psychology from Ambedkar University in 22. He has written 2 books on mental health and is currently working with a focus on men's mental health. As the founder of Mind Tuition, he works closely with students preparing for competitive exams to train them psychology for the day of the exam and help them vent the stress that they experience during preparations. Thanks, Arjun, for joining us. Also on stage is Mallika Dua is an actor, writer, comedian. Her work through the years includes shows like Comedy Premium League, Mintra Fashion Superstar, Fake or Not, and Midnight Misadventures. She's also featured in movies like Zero, Namaste England, and Indu Ki Jawani. Welcome, Mallika. Thanks for joining us. And of course, last but not least is PV Sindhu. Sindhu is an Indian professional badminton player, 2-time Olympic medalist, 2022 Commonwealth Games gold medalist, and 2019 world champion. By winning the world...
Something is wrong. I don't think anything is wrong, but I think that is how, a lot of people here have faced a lot of problems in their life, but I think, coming out and telling it or, explaining it would be a better thing for them as well, and they will feel better about it. And I feel that, when they spoke about this campaign, I felt, yes, it is really good. And I know, because I've seen my friends who are very close to me facing that problem, and they couldn't come out from that. So that is why I think I'm really very happy that, I'm doing this campaign, that, yes, let's be brave together and come out and speak whatever it is.
Thanks, Sindhu. That help you take care of your own mental health and well-being?
Well, my journey with my own mental health has been a really long, winded one. It's something I've been dealing with since I was 10 or 12 years old. And it's taken me a really long time to I've had the time, I've had the luxury of time in that sense, even though I was dealing with stuff, to figure out mechanisms. I do all the regular things, what I consider regular things. I go to therapy regularly. When I need medication, I take medication. But there are a couple of things that I've realized pretty much universally that I think everyone needs when it comes to their mental health. One of those things is, and this is something I try to sort of apply to my life when I'm kind of struggling, everyone needs to feel like they kind of have affect. And by that I mean, what I mean is that you need to feel like you matter, you can drive your own life, and you can have an impact on other people's lives. That's the thing that kind of gives you a deep sense of fulfillment. And when you don't have that, when you're kind of lacking in that, it derails you completely. It leaves you with a kind of empty feeling. So I try to look for things that fulfill me in any way possible. I try to make sure that I feel like I have some semblance of control over my own life. The other thing I've realized is that human connection is everything. It's kind of all we need. It's what we're here for. No matter how introverted you are as a person, what you really crave at the end of the day is human connection. You crave people to have meaningful, impactful, intimate connection with. And that's the one thing sort of mental health issues kind of take away from you a little bit. You feel like it completely severs your sense of connection with other people. And so that's another thing I try to do as best as possible. I try to keep that connection going. And the third thing is exactly what we're kind of here to talk about, which is, the sense of shame that we all intrinsically have around our mental health, around the way that we feel, is the thing that we need to dismantle as quickly as possible, because, Brené Brown really famously said that shame unravels human connection. And it's, like I said, it's the one thing that we kind of need to feel good. So, events like this, panels like this are a really, really wonderful step in being able to actually have this conversation, help unravel that shame, and yeah, that's kind of it.
Thanks, Shaheen. So, one of the things I do want to pick up on is it was difficult to meet friends, perhaps sometimes even family. So what did you do to respond?
I mean, social media in COVID times was, both a boon and a bane, because we spent way too much time on it, but at the same time, it was your one sort of source for connection during the pandemic. So yeah, and I was lucky. I had family. I was living with family. I had people around me, and I think that really sort of helped keep me going. But it's also then that I realized, more than any other time, how important, honestly, in a lot of ways, how little you need, but also what you need. That connection is so important, and as soon as you sever that, it takes such a massive toll on your sense of well-being. But yeah, social media and FaceTime really, somehow, it really helped.
Great. Mallika, coming to you, again, as someone who's, as an artist, a performer, a comedian, how do you manage your own mental health, and, while also, of course, balancing your professional goals, expectations, and the need to keep going?
I think firstly, hi everyone. I've now finally, after a lot of years of kind of being uncomfortable with where I was, realized one thing, which is that comedy or social media, etc., is my profession. And we have a tendency to define and describe success only in professional terms. Somehow we just don't count the personal, we don't count the internal. It's like, how are you doing professionally? Yeah, that is success. And I've unlearned that definition, and which is why I have now started to give 50% of myself to my work, and the other 50 I actively try and, what we cutely call self-care these days, I do that. Full disclosure, my sister is a therapist, so mental health in our house was always a very open conversation, luckily. She made it easy for me to kind of seek help, or she never looked at me as, acha, this one is a problem child, isko ye hai. Like, we have a tendency to name the problem, right? Like, we don't actually try and fix that. So I think since 2013 I've been in therapy and on and off medication, and that has been something, that has been one of the best things I've done for myself, because we just pop pills for everything, right? But we don't do it when, somehow there's a big stigma associated with the most vital part of our entire being. So to answer your question, how I balance my work and the changes, the problems that life kind of throws at us, is that I make sure that I give myself that dedicated time, whether it is to do my therapy, what Shaheen said, the regular stuff, you have to do that. It's like some people just have to do more than others, right? And that's just, and even in that there are degrees. Like I may have to do less than somebody else may have to, but I have to be extra careful. I have to surround myself with people who don't kind of make me feel like I'm racing against time or, you know, not doing well enough. I have to make sure I don't go too much on social media, even if it is my work, because I think I have to create more than I consume. At least in my profession, that's more important. And I think the most important thing I've realized is there's no point fighting it. Sometimes if you are going through pain, you are going through anxiety, trauma, whatever it is that you're going through, sometimes the only way out is through. You have to go through it. There's no point numbing it. There's no point being in denial or being positive. It doesn't work. You have to just go through it. Yeah.
So one of the things I want to follow up again, Mallika, is this whole issue of the fact that there is so much stigma around mental health, and sometimes that's also at a personal level. Many of us who might be struggling, you know, I am a health professional, but I have to say there are many health professionals who struggle with mental health issues, but even with our training, we find it difficult to access care. So, you know, how do you get to that self-realization that I do really need to access care, and this is something which will help me, but you have to take that step. So thoughts on that?
So back when I started therapy, there was none of this. Like today, what we're doing here with Maybelline, with Sangath, this whole thing was not even a topic. Like I remember very slyly telling this guy I was dating, oh, I take medication for mood swings. Like that is how I twisted and turned it and explained it to him. But today what we're doing, I feel it's a lot more accessible, not just for us privileged lot, but for a lot of people who are watching us and might feel that it's okay to seek help. That said, I feel that there has to be more empowerment for therapists. There has to be, like, I love that Maybelline is doing this, and you know there is a helpline, and they are literally putting their money and their might behind this. Because from the perspective that I see at home, therapists feel they may not earn enough, but clients feel that they cannot afford therapy as often. You know, it's a lot of money once a week to pay that for a lot of salaried professionals is a lot of money. So somewhere the government or more corporate organizations have to put their might behind that. And I feel that's how it's going to be easier for individuals. Like I know a friend of mine, her company sponsors her therapy. And she's so much better for that. Because she doesn't have to worry about, oh, how do I, like, because that's an added anxiety, right? I have to make that money, I have to pay that money, then how do I talk to this person, how do I make time for it? But if your organization understands that, I think that's the most wonderful thing, because a lot of mental health issues are also systemic. Like sometimes we try to find solutions internally or just within us and around us, but a lot of the problems are systemic. People don't have access to healthcare, people don't have access to a lot of facilities growing up. They grow up with a lot of sense of like, what do you say, a very deficient sense of self-worth they grow up with, and those are systemic problems, you know. And I know I'm no spokesperson for someone who is not privileged, because I've had a very privileged upbringing. But as an observer, I can say that that's also some place we need to pass the mic on.
Right, absolutely. And you know, there's a lot of young people in the audience, sports persons. As a sports icon, how do you take care of yourself, and how do you manage these sort of pressures on you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, when it comes to tournaments and matches, there's going to be a lot of pressure, and, you know, you'll have to play in any situation, even when you're not feeling well, or if you don't want to play, you can't do anything about it. But as she said, you have to go through it. I mean, you can't do anything about it. So, I mean, like nowadays, they're having a psychiatrist, or, you know, you go to a doctor, and even the coaches, and I think the whole nation is like, and the whole teams of Indian teams are like, yes, we need a psychiatrist, or, you know, yes, this is a point where we need to talk about, and they are telling the athletes to come out and speak about mental health. So I think it is really good, because being a sports person, I mean, I think we definitely face a lot of things where when it comes to pressure, when it comes to responsibilities, because you know, the expectations are a lot more, and then you get that anxiety that, yes, you know, I need to do well, and you end up not doing well. And at that point of time, you go into a state of mind where, you know, you're completely depressed and you don't know what to do, because you can't live up to people's expectations at the same time you don't know what to do for yourself. I think that is the time you need to speak to your parents, your relatives, your friends, whoever it is, or, you know, ask them to speak to the doctor. So I think that definitely normalizes the conversation altogether, and, you know, you will feel okay about it. At the same time, it is a process. You need to go through it again. At the same time, it also needs to pass on, where others also need to understand that, yes, you know, this is nothing to hide about. You need to come out, and it is completely normal, and it is fine. I mean, being a sports person, I'm talking this, but I think every other person in this world, you know, are facing it. So I think this is normal, and it is okay to come out and speak about it, that yes, I am not fine. So what is going to happen? Nothing is going to happen at the end of the day. Rather, you speak out and you get better. I mean, it might take some time, but, you know, at the end of the day, you will feel better. And as she said, yes, it is a self-care where you have to take care of yourself. So.
Thanks a lot for that. Arjun, as a psychologist, but also someone who's spoken about dealing yourself with severe clinical depression in your life, you know, one of the things you've been focused on is actively reaching out to students to talk about mental health and the need to destigmatize conversations around mental health, making access easier. You know, there are many students in the audience today. The current scenario for students can be very, very stressful. You know, it's a very competitive world. There's exams, there's entrances, there is the tension of which college, etc. you'll get into. Based on your own interaction of working with many, many students, you know, can you shed light on some of the concerns that they have and how they can find it easy to access mental health?
Yeah, sure. So I'll come from two perspectives. One was my own personal experiences from when I was severely depressed, and the other from my interactions with students. So on the surface, it might seem like it's very academic, it's very financial, that we want to have a career, we want to have the best colleges, we want to build ourselves. But when you go deep into these conversations, you try to talk to these students more, you realize it's more of an identity issue. Youth at this time, at this stage of their lives, we are trying to understand ourselves, where we are coming from. The lives that we are living, are they our own, or were they the ones that our parents wanted for us? So I remember when I got into MBBS program, I started questioning that, okay, yeah, I got here, but why? Why did I want to be a doctor in the first place? And that was because since a childhood I was told that if I became a doctor, I'd be a good son to take over from my dad. And I just started questioning that, and I realized I don't want to be a doctor. I cannot deal with that. That is too intense, that is too much pressure to deal with, and I struggle to say that out loud because, again, men, we struggle to talk about these things openly. So the first is realization, and then talking about it is another step that comes up. So a lot of issues, a lot of concerns, they might seem academic, they might seem like peer pressure, something like that, but it's always about forming our own identity, forming our own ethics, our own morality, and as Shaheen mentioned, having an affect, having an agency of our life, that we are in control of our lives, not our parents, not our friends, not our romantic partners, but we ourselves. So maybe these conversations will lead to that, some reclamation of that agency with time, and that is what these conversations are all about for me.
Thanks, Arjun. Now, one of the things you touched on was this whole issue around